Hey, what's up everybody? Tarafdar back with a brand new video. Today I want to share about how I got started in the credit repair business, what it took, what kind of journey I went through. So that some of these lessons are hopefully going to be near and dear to you, and then you can use this information if you were to start a credit repair business. And if not, then if you're a customer, this is definitely going to be something that's going to be useful to you. So note that I haven't really shared this part of the story because some of that is very personal to me. I definitely get sentimentally impacted because of the situation that I've gone through and seen some of the customers go through. So the mere fact that I'm doing this today is because I want to be able to share it with you guys. I feel it's a time to kind of, dive back into my past and share some of the experiences that I've had. And a lot of this is coming from a place of positivity. I just want to encourage you guys, if you're in the credit repair journey, to continue doing what you're doing, to continue making sure that you can be the best version of yourself financially, so that you can benefit yourself on wealth standards, use your personal credit for a lot of great things that you're able to accomplish in the future, and hopefully get some clarity from my story. So let's get started on how I got started in the credit repair business. It all started in 2007, right before the housing market crisis. Fact of the matter, I actually didn't know about the housing market crisis. I was just thinking, hey, I'm going to do a business. And the business I was in was actually debt settlement and loan modifications. And this was not even mortgage loan modifications. We're talking about modifying personal credit, personal loans that are installments, stuff of that nature. And it was very interesting at the time because we had a lot of volume. So the way I used to do it was I used to go out there and market my business through newspaper ads back in the days. I used to go into workshops. I used to connect with a lot of different brokers when it comes to mortgages, when it comes to financing, the type of people that would actually have large amount of debts. I also was able to purchase lists, and these lists were basically a list of all the consumers that I had in my state, which was New York at the time, and basically gather all these individuals with high amount of debt, with very bad credit. And then we used to call them as a telemarketing campaign. We used to also send them letters sometimes, which, believe it or not, was very effective at the same time as well. So with all that said, those are some of the strategies that we use to get access to those customers. The biggest thing that I found was very helpful for me was being able to communicate openly, right? So a lot of things in my business that I am thankful for is for me that, the mere fact that I am very open to communicating. I definitely don't shy away from a conversation. I like to get more personal sometimes with customers. And then basically from that perspective, I felt a really hard connection with some of these clients that was helping. Believe it or not, there was a lot of clients there who were seniors who were actually starting to struggle with their debts. It was in a point, it was so bad that some of these people couldn't afford their medication. I remember this one lady, and she was actually a good friend. Well, her father was a good friend of Kennedy back in the days, and she wrote a book on that. And when she reached out to me to help for the situation that she was in, she was telling me how at the age that she's in, and due to the current debt crisis that she's undergoing on her personal level, she couldn't afford her medication anymore. So some of these stories really touched me, and it made me realize that the business I was in was actually good because there was a lot of profit to be made. There's a lot of help that you can offer customers by settling their debts and helping them get to a point where back in the days, debt settlement was easy. And of course now there's a lot more regulations, but helping them get to a point where they can comfortably afford stuff and lower their monthly payments. But one thing I didn't realize back in the day was that by indirectly doing this, I'm impacting their credit scores. It's going to actually get lowered. And they will not maintain the same type of credit score, because once you play with that debt amount, you're basically putting them in jeopardy and you're settling it. So it's going to look in the credit report as a bad debt, or perhaps an internal program based on closed amount of debt. But when you do these type of things, given the knowledge we have today as a shared community, we know that utilization was important, but I wasn't really thinking about that when I was doing these type of things for customers. Obviously, I was new to the whole game, but I learned quickly that was really something that impacted her. And down the road, what happened a couple of years after having helped her, she reached back out and said, look, she's not able to borrow. The credit is so bad, and she was thankful, that she was able to settle the debt. She was able to lower her minimum payments, which in turn were able to give her access to being able to afford the medication. But she was having a hard time obtaining credit because certain things she wanted to do, she was not able to tap into. And she was going through a financial distress at the time. So this kind of forced me into understanding the game of credit. It really pushed me towards the boundary of thinking about these type of people who potentially don't know, right? And believe it or not, we are basically taking credit for granted. All these type of people that are struggling out there, who have no idea of how to work it, who have no idea of how to legitimately borrow, given their life circumstances, and the mere fact that they're actually technically being screwed by the system, was a very heartbreaking thing for me. So when I thought about that and I looked at her situation, it really gave me the drive I needed. Among other customers, obviously, I wasn't just dealing with her, but looking through my database of consumers and customers that I was dealing with at the time, I figured quickly that that was something that we needed to concentrate on. Because lessons from her to me was that, look, you may help people reduce their monthly payments, but if there's nothing that's helping them get away from where they're at by giving them access to better tools and resources, better interest rates, especially when it comes to future transactions, some sort of leverage to help them, get over some of the bumps financially. There's no point in all this. So this is quickly when I realized that it was very important for me to get into the credit game. So I did so, and I learned a lot, from that perspective. I made a lot of mistakes, personally speaking. I'm talking about I used to do crazy amount of identity thefts back in the days, which was basically easy to do, right? But I didn't use police reports or affidavits. I didn't go through that path. I actually just went online and I had a power of attorney for my customer, and I just combated them. I was very relentless because I was, doing telemarketing with my team to reach customers. So we were very fluent on the phone and we knew exactly what we had to say. So we didn't have to go through terrible type of strategies that were unethical and stuff like that. But we definitely came hammering the credit reporting agencies to make sure the work was being done. So when we were hammering these credit reporting agencies, we noticed a lot of customers getting their outcomes fairly quickly. Back in the days, we didn't know about this whole 30-day rule, especially myself, right? I was very naive. So I got into this and I was doing very aggressive communications, phone calls, using power of attorneys, and so on and so forth. I mean, at the end of the day, because we were settling debt in a form, we already had their power of attorney, because that was necessary. And we had a team of lawyers that were helping us in the process to get the agreements together. And we'd pay them a fee on a retainer basis to keep them active in our teams to make sure we're legally protected. But when you look at the credit side of things, that's what we used to do. Now, as time passed by, more and more customers were being affected because, okay, well, we can clean up their credit, but having access to the credit going forward, that was another challenge for us, right? So that was the same for my customer, the lady that couldn't afford her medication. So we basically decided to find a way to enhance credit. Back in the days, trade lines were easy to come by, right? These primaries, we used to add them. We used to add mortgage primaries. We used to add auto primaries and all these type of things. And once we added those type of primaries, customers were able to basically access credit, and we kind of financially engineered their file to get them whatever they needed. One of the biggest lessons I learned was when you give somebody a little bit too much of something that they never had access to, there's two things that can happen. One, they'll be really wise with it, or number two, they'll basically abuse the whole system that you've given them access to and screw it up worse than they have in the past. And this type of screw up is going to cause them more damage than ever before, right? So this is true for any type of things you do, right? When you suddenly access a lot of liquidity or wealth, you get excited and you start getting thoughts and ideas of how to use that money. And then basically all of a sudden, as you're going through expenditures, you ran out, you're running dry. So the same philosophy was with us, with our customers, when we used to get them a lot of credit, when we used to engineer their files to give them access to liquidity. There was no system behind how to use that. There was no education. There was no guidance or some sort of direction or blueprint for them. All they were is a whole bunch of credit cards and loans and lines of credit, and using that information and using that type of money to do whatever they wanted to do was basically a green card for them to mess it up again. So that was a lesson that I learned the hard way. And one of the biggest things that really caught me by surprise was, when these type of clients were coming back to me and they were like, hey, clean up my credit. My credit's not bad, not good anymore. I need you to fix it so I can clean it up and go get more funding. We were basically utilized as an institution that would kind of screw the financial system, right? So for me, that's not what I wanted to build my business on. That's not what the type of brand I wanted to be known as. So what I quickly decided to do was to shift away from giving a free-for-all green card and using these financial engineering tactics to help customers who really are in it for the benefit of themselves and don't really care about responsibility financially. And then, of course, that concept of using it or abusing it or being wise with it, 99.9% of the time we saw a lot of people going to the abuse and use route. If there was a fine balance between that and we noticed that a lot of customers were being responsible, then it's not a problem. But inherently, it's human nature, so I should have been more careful with that. So that's what happened, right? So we shifted away from this whole financial engineering credit repair thing and loan modification into a more educational platform. And during that time when I was learning to educate myself, of course, I wanted to make sure that I knew how credit was going to be used for the future, right? If you're going to build a lot of wealth, if you wanted to establish some sort of brand, you need to understand how credit works. You need to understand what you can use credit for. So I got myself into investment banking. And investment banking really helped me cross the Rubicon of, hey, this is the traditional way of doing things and getting credit and accessing capital. And then there's also the high level way of doing it, which is talking to investors, understanding the type of transactions that are happening, how credit is utilized during those type of transactions, how to keep your credit perfect for underwriting, all these type of things. So I learned a great deal there. And honestly speaking, from that moment on, I never looked back, because I knew if you knew how to use your credit properly, if you knew exactly the tools and resources you need to have access to, and you respect credit and you respect the system that credit can, help you with, especially when it comes to building wealth, there's just so much ahead. There's a lot of things that you can accomplish. There's a lot of things that you can do for yourself and your family. And the type of transformation that you can create is incredibly powerful. So that's when I decided that I'm going to focus on financial education. That's when I decided that if I'm going to help somebody with their credit, I need to understand what their goals are. See, there's a lot of people that reach out to me to help them fix their credit. And I always have the patience, and I take my time to ask them the questions in reference to what specifically do they intend to do with the credit. And I can tell by a mile when I hear it in their tonality and when I look at their credit reports of whether or not they're serious. Some of the things that is apparent in the credit report is translated from irresponsible behavior. So because of my experiences in the past and some of the ways the communications happen, the mere fact that I was very fluent with customer and understanding the psychology of what they needed the credit for, I was able to determine whether or not they were the right fit. So if you guys notice on my channel, one of the biggest things that I don't do is I don't sell credit repair hardcore, right? I don't do that because it's not my real focus. My real focus is to educate you guys. If you're knowledgeable about credit, and not to say that I won't help you with your credit, it's just that I want you to understand the ethical standards. It's just you align yourself with the right vision. You align yourself with the right environment and mindset. You force yourself to push across all these type of negativities, and you go into a different pedestal that allows you to access unlimited resources if you know what you're doing. And that's really what I wanted to set out for you guys. That was the mission on this channel. I really wanted to give you guys some sort of vision as how you can use your personal credit. So I wanted to share this story with you guys is because I know that a lot of you guys may be wondering, how this guy got into credit repair. How did Ali Tarafdar get into credit repair? How does he understand so much about the credit industry? And the truth is, it took a lot of hits. I got bashed up so many times. I fell down so many different times. I decided not to stay down, though. I decided to get back up. But when I did decide to go back up, I always wanted to tweak the approach of credit repair. I always wanted to make sure that it's going to benefit the client. But at the same time, I'm always upgrading my own sense of knowledge to make sure that I'm sticking to the standards that I set for myself. And that's how I look at credit repair, especially for you guys. So if you're in it for the long-term game, which I always tell you to focus on, then credit repair should be your exit strategy. It should be something that you use as a leveraging tool. It's a vehicle, right? But you should be able to use that vehicle to build a good amount and a substantial amount of wealth, especially if you know what you're doing. So I hope you took this message to heart. I really wanted you guys to understand the significance and the importance of how I got into this business and why I do what I do. And I hope you'll join me as to making sure that we strive to do the same thing as a collective community here, especially through all my subscribers. I really wish for you guys to benefit from the knowledge you have on this channel, to use the information you have to be able to further yourself into your credit journey, especially when it comes to building your wealth and taking care of yourselves and your family. And understanding the significance of how to leverage it and how to come into a proper mindset that allows you to go past all the negativity. And some of the mistakes we've done in the past, we're all guilty of it. It's just we have to see past that, and we have to really think about what tomorrow is going to look like, right? So I hope this story inspires you to look at credit differently, to look at the things that you need to do when it comes to personal credit differently, and to be able to use your personal credit the right way. Educate yourself the right way with all the resources and access to tools you have. Of course, as usual, you have my Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery 2.0. It's a lot of knowledge, right? There's a lot of different things you'll learn, but the system that I'm designed for customers to go through that program is really to help you understand the business side of credit, but more importantly, how to fix it using that knowledge of business and the ethical standards of how to do it properly. And of course, going forward, I do hope that you guys join me on some of the future videos that I do. If you're new to this channel, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing and turning the bell icon on. If you guys enjoyed the story I shared with you today, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment below on some of the things that may have inspired you about today's story. What are some of the things you'd like to share with me about your personal credit journey? I'd definitely love to hear from you. So don't shy away and leave me a comment below. And if you liked what I shared with you, give me a yes in the comment as well, just to let me know, hey Ali, I really appreciate you sharing this story, and I definitely want to have a conversation with you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Once again, if you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe. Turn the bell icon on to all instead of personalized, so that every single time there's videos like these, you'll be first to be notified. With that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafdar. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.